Okay, so good morning. Welcome back to Middle-Length Lamrim class. So as usual, we'll start with a few prayers and then do a little bit of meditation on something from the previous class.
To the teacher endowed, transcendent destroyer, one thus gone, full destroyer, completely and fully awakened one, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, one gone to bliss, nor of the world's supreme guide of beings to be tamed. Teacher of gods and humans to you, the Buddha endowed, transcendent destroyer, glorious conqueror, Shakyamuni, I prostrate, make offerings and go for refuge. When, O supreme among humans, you were born on this earth, you paced 7 strides and said, I am supreme in this world. To you who are wise, then I bow, who with pure bodies formed supremely fine, wisdom ocean like a golden mountain, fame that blazes in the 3 worlds, winner of the best supreme guide, to you I bow, who with the supreme science, face like the spotless moon, color like gold, to you I bow. You are immaculate, the 3 worlds are not incomparable, wise one, to you I bow. Great, compassionate, protector, all-knowing teacher, field of merit and good qualities, vast as an ocean, to the Tathagata I bow. Through purity, freeing from attachment, through virtue, freeing from the lower realms. Unique, supreme, ultimate reality, to the Dharma that is peace I bow. Having freed themselves, showing the path to freedom too, well established in the trainings. The holy field endowed with good qualities, to the Sangha I bow. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions, perform only perfect virtuous actions. Subdue your mind completely, this is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, mirage, a flame of a lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew, a bubble. A dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud, see conditioned things as such. Through this merit may sentient beings attain the state of all-seeing, subdue the four faults, and be delivered from the ocean of cyclic existence perturbed by the waves of aging, sickness, and death. This ground anointed with perfume, flowers strewn Mount Meru, 4 lands, sun and moon, imagined as a Buddha land and offered to you, may all beings enjoy this pure land. Venerable holy gurus, in the space of your truth body, from billowing clouds of your wisdom and love, let fall the rain of the profound and extensive Dharma, in whatever form is suitable for subduing sentient beings. Idam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Niryatayami. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create, by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create, by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create, by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings.
So take a few more moments to renew the bodhicitta motivation you generated earlier today so that you really feel strongly your reason for being here, your motivation for being here is to attain full enlightenment, awakening, in order to benefit all other living beings, but also to be able to help others as much as possible between now and enlightenment. Okay, so let's do some meditation on one of the kinds of laziness which is an obstacle to joyous effort. And that's the laziness that's called attachment to meaningless activities. And it's said that can include things like idle talk, distractions of excitement, like entertainment, sports, going traveling just for fun, and so on. And also keeping busy, doing things to acquire things just for this life. And these activities are considered meaningless or even bad because they're trivial pursuits that cause us to waste our precious human life and interfere with our practice for attaining enlightenment. So see if you can bring to mind an instance of this in your own experience, where you were enthusiastic about doing something that was non-dharma and maybe even unwholesome. And it can happen that we may have more enthusiasm for those kinds of activities than we have for Dharma activities like studying, meditating, and so on. So the remedy for this kind of laziness is to contemplate the results of these activities compared with the results of learning and practicing the Dharma. So, as we know, Dharma is the cause of genuine happiness that can be experienced in this lifetime, but also in future lives, and also is the cause of higher states like liberation from samsara and becoming enlightened, becoming awakened to benefit all living beings. And then, on the other hand, activities that are done just for the enjoyment of this life do not lead to genuine happiness. They might bring some very temporary pleasure, but that is quickly lost, and we may be left with attachment, craving for more. And so then they become the cause for us to remain in samsara, to continue taking birth in samsara again and again and again. And if the actions are unwholesome, negative, then they can lead to suffering, like being born in unfortunate states of existence, or experiencing suffering and problems, even if we're born in a good situation, like as a human being. Also, our attachment to such activities can lead to distractions, even when we are trying to study or meditate and practice the real Dharma. So right now we have a very fortunate life, a precious human life with ideal conditions in which we can learn and practice the Dharma. And such a life is rare and not easy to obtain. And it depends on many, many different factors, many causes and conditions, just to continue having such a life. And these conditions could change at any moment without any warning, and we could lose this life, or it could change drastically such that we wouldn't be able to practice Dharma as we would like to. So see if you can resolve to use this life that you have, use the time that you have wisely by practicing the Dharma as much as possible with joyous effort. What happened to the clock? There used to be a clock here. Never mind. It's just convenient. Okay, so we are still going through the fourth of the six perfections, which is called joyous effort. So how would you describe joyous effort? What does it mean? Taking delight in virtue, yeah. Being happy, joyful about doing things that are virtuous, as opposed to taking delight in non-virtue, which is considered laziness. It's interesting. And then we were going through the obstacles or adverse conditions to joyous effort. And these are all different kinds of laziness. So how many different kinds of laziness are there? 3. What are they? Procrastination, yeah. Yeah, the one we just meditated on. And then discouragement, yeah. And so last time, thank you. Last time we started going through discouragement, and Lama Tsongkhapa explains 3 kinds of discouragement, and I just went through those very, very quickly based on a chart that I made on the slide. I don't know, somebody have the slides? It's got the slides. Oh, okay. But I didn't read what it says in the book, so I'll do that now. So we are on page 264. I'll start from the top again. The 3 kinds of discouragement, and then there's antidotes for each of these, how to deal with them. Okay, so the discouragement that thinks, how could I ever accomplish anything like that? So this discouragement is also of 3 types. There is the discouragement that thinks, since the objects to be attained, the excellent qualities of a Buddha, are limitless, I cannot attain them. So this is like discouragement about the goal, what we aspire for on the Bodhisattva path, the state of enlightenment, awakening with all the amazing qualities that a Buddha has. And then the second is, there is the discouragement that thinks, since the method, giving away my arms, legs, and the like, is immensely difficult, I cannot accomplish it. So this is discouragement about the method for attaining enlightenment, because there are stories of bodhisattvas, like the Buddha in his previous life, giving away parts of his body, giving away his body, like this famous story of the Buddha as Prince Mahadeva, giving his body to the tiger family, the mother tiger and her 5 cubs who were starving, and he felt this enormous compassion and just gave them his body, which is like, wow, amazing. So we hear about those stories and then we think, oh, I couldn't do that. If that's what I have to do to get enlightened, I don't think I can do that. And then third, there is the discouragement that thinks, since it is necessary to return to this place referring to samsara, cyclic existence, taking infinite rebirths in cyclic existence, during that time I will be harmed by the sufferings of cyclic existence. So that is with regard to the amount of time it takes to reach enlightenment, usually a long time, eons. Like it said that the Shakyamuni Buddha spent 3 countless great eons in samsara, taking rebirth again and again and again and again, working his way towards enlightenment, accumulating the causes for enlightenment. And so hearing about that, thinking about that, you may think, oh, that means I'd have to be in samsara all those lives and experiencing all the suffering of samsara, life after life after life. That would be terrible. I don't think I can do that. Okay, so these are the 3 kinds of discouragement that Lama Tsongkhapa points out. Anybody ever feel this way? I mean, if you don't, maybe you haven't really thought carefully about what we've got ourselves in for. Attaining enlightenment. Oh, that sounds wonderful. Oh, yes, I want to do that. But then when you start finding out what it takes, then it's like, Yeah, so it's quite understandable to feel these kinds of discouragement. Okay, but there are antidotes to these feelings of discouragement. Yeah, because if you have a feeling of discouragement, any of these 3 kinds of discouragement, then you don't apply antidotes or remedies. You could easily give up and think, no, I can't do this, and maybe go for another path, like the path to nirvana. It takes less time, it's easier, and then you'll be in peace forever. But yeah, we don't want to do that. We want to stay on the bodhisattva path. Okay, so there are also 3 antidotes. The antidote to the first is the thought, even the Buddhas did not already attain high paths right from the start. Rather, they were like me and became Buddhas by going on to increasingly higher paths. Since the Blessed One also said that even those who are greatly inferior to me will attain Buddhahood, why should I not attain it too unless I fail to put in joyous effort? So these are some thoughts that we can use to encounter the discouragement about the goal, thinking, oh, it's such a high state and all those amazing qualities that a Buddha has. I don't, someone like me, I'm just lousy and hopeless. How could I ever attain those? And so, to think about, well, the Buddha wasn't always a Buddha. That's the case with all the Buddhas. Nobody has been a Buddha from the beginning. Every Buddha started off as an ordinary samsaric being, like me, even worse than me. They've been in hell. They were in hell. They were animals. They were hungry ghosts. They were full of delusions. They did all kinds of negative things in their past lives. So they were in samsara, ordinary samsaric beings, very deluded. But they managed to get out of that. They generated aspiration to become enlightened, and then they worked really, really hard, and they overcame all their afflictions, all their obscurations, all their defilements. They developed all these incredible qualities. It didn't happen like overnight, but it happened through a lot of effort, and they did it. So if they did it, I can do it too. Everyone has the ability to do that. And yeah, so it's said in the sutras that everyone has Buddha nature, even insects. There's a quotation where the Buddha said even flies and worms and maggots, I don't know what kinds of creatures like that, even they have the potential for enlightenment. They will become enlightened one day. So even beings like that will one day become Buddhas. I mean, certainly me, I'm a human being, and I have an intelligent mind, and I have all the conditions to be able to learn the Dharma and practice the Dharma, so I definitely can do it. I just have to generate this quality of joyous effort and put my energy into creating the causes to reach enlightenment. So those are some things we can think about to overcome that kind of discouragement. And then the antidote to the second, so the second is about the method, giving away your body and so on. The antidote to the second is to think, as long as the perception arises that it is difficult to give away my body and so forth, I will not give it away. I think what that means is I don't have to give it, I'll explain more. However, when the time to give it away arrives, it will not be difficult, but will be like giving away vegetables. So you probably remember Shantideva. He talks about that. Yeah. So what my understanding is that this practice of giving away your body, or giving away even some part of your body, is not something required of beginners. But as long as we still have this thought of fear, we feel afraid of giving it away, and we find it too difficult. That is not the time when we give away our body. Okay. And so in the beginning, we start by, giving things easy to give, like vegetables, fruits, vegetables. We give food, money, clothes, medicine, and so on. We give those kind of things away to other beings, and that way we gradually get used to giving. Yeah, we get familiar with the practice of giving, and we probably find it very beneficial. And in the meantime, we're developing our mind, we're overcoming attachment, miserliness, self-centeredness, and so on, cultivating more compassion and love and wisdom. And then we gradually develop our mind and get to the point where we can give our body, and just as easily as we give away vegetables. And I think a big part of that is also the wisdom realizing emptiness. With that wisdom realizing there's no inherently existing I, body, and so on and so forth, that makes it really easy to just, give away your arm just the way you would give a carrot. And so, through gradual practice, gradual development, then we will get to that point. So we shouldn't worry about that right now. We shouldn't feel like, right now I have to give away my body. I can't do that. So I'll just read what Geshe Zopa says in his commentary. He says, the Buddha said that in the beginning we should give only what we are able to give willingly, respectfully, and without stinginess. In order to progress, we have to see the purpose and benefit of generosity. As we develop great compassion, love, bodhicitta, and an understanding of shunyata, we will come to enjoy practicing generosity and be more and more willing to give. Eventually, our selfish attitude will be completely gone. We will feel it is much more important to do a favor for others than to cherish ourselves. When the strength of our compassion for others is so extensive that we love them more than ourselves, we turn away from attachment to the body. Only at that point, and only if we determine that giving a part of our body to others will serve a greater purpose than keeping it, should we do it. So a bodhisattva will also consider, is this really going to be beneficial? They don't just do it, impulsively, but they really consider carefully if that's a wise thing to do. He says this is not something done unthinkingly. Bodhisattvas have to see that it would be meaningful to help others in this way. And the measure of this level of practice is being able to give your body or life as easily as giving a vegetable. Right, so, they would feel the same way, no different, giving a part of their body as they would feel giving a vegetable. So until we get to that point, we don't have to give our body, unless you want to. I mean, you can also give blood. People also donate a kidney. That's a little harder than giving blood, but people do that. You could still have your life. You don't lose your life by doing that. And then another antidote to this this feeling of kind of fear or discouragement about giving is to think about how we have already gone through an immeasurable amount of suffering in our past lives. So we've, from beginningless time, we've been in samsara, and much of that time we've been in unfortunate situations, like in hell, or as a hungry ghost, or as an animal. And in those lives, we've had these things happen to us. We've had our bodies chopped up and burned and so forth countless times, and for no good purpose. So we've already had all those terrible experiences, but without any benefit, just experiencing the results of our bad karma. But there was nothing beneficial that came out of that kind of experience. And they didn't help us get out of samsara, but we probably just experienced anger and fear and created more bad karma to have more suffering in samsara. So we've already had these kind of experiences many, many, many times. And if we don't get ourselves out of samsara, we will continue in the future, in our future lives, we will continue to have these samsaric experiences, and sometimes in the lower realms, and having our bodies chopped up and eaten by others and so on and so forth, for no purpose. But here, a bodhisattva giving their body or giving a part of their body is done for a purpose. It's done with a pure motivation of bodhicitta, of love and compassion, and creating a huge amount of merit, a measurable amount of merit. And by doing this kind of practice, then you quickly get out of samsara, quickly get to enlightenment, and then you can be of benefit to all other beings. So to just compare, being in samsara and having these kind of experiences of being chopped up and eaten by others, or doing that kind of activity or that kind of action as part of the bodhisattva path, comparing those two, you can see, well, It's much more meaningful if I give parts of my body with positive motivation, a virtuous motivation. That will bring me to enlightenment, get me out of samsara, and then I can help others get out of samsara as well. So it's said that this is what bodhisattvas will contemplate, and that gives them the courage to be able to do such a practice. So it's not like something meaningless and just going through this terrible experience. And it's probably not a terrible experience for them because they do it with such a pure motivation and joy. So they feel delight rather than dread about such experiences. Okay, so then the third type of discouragement is discouragement about the amount of time you would have to stay in samsara and experience all the sufferings. So the antidote to the third is to stop discouragement by thinking, because a bodhisattva abandons bad actions, their effects, suffering feelings, do not arise. Owing to his or her stable realization that cyclic existence lacks inherent existence like an illusion, there is no suffering in his or her mind. If he thrives with physical and mental bliss, even while remaining in cyclic existence, despair is pointless. So what this means is that bodhisattvas, even though they remain in samsara a long time on their way to enlightenment, taking birth again and again and again to benefit sentient beings and create the causes for enlightenment, they have little or no suffering. It depends on where they are on the path. When you get to the Arya paths, like the path of seeing, and that's the start of the Bodhisattva grounds. So at that point, you of course, you have the direct realization of emptiness. So at that point, from that point on, there's no more suffering. No suffering at all. So even if they're in samsara and so on and so, there's no physical or mental suffering. And even before that, before they reach that path, they will still have some suffering, but not much. And the reason is because bodhisattvas have stopped doing harmful actions, negative actions, like the 10 non-virtuous actions. Those are the cause of suffering. Those are the cause of physical suffering, like pain and sickness. So since a bodhisattva has abandoned those actions, they're no longer doing those kind of negative actions, then they're not going to have physical suffering while they're in samsara. And also they have no mental suffering. Mental suffering is the result of ignorance and afflictions, greed, hatred, ignorance. And bodhisattvas are working on overcoming those afflictions. They're reducing them gradually and eventually overcoming them altogether. So because they're overcoming the afflictions in their minds, then they don't have mental suffering. So for a bodhisattva then, staying in samsara for a long time isn't a problem. They don't have physical suffering because they're not doing negative actions, and they don't have mental suffering because they're overcoming their afflictions. But also, they have all these practices like the thought transformation practices, transforming problems into the path. So even when problems happen, they're able to transform them into the path and enjoy them like ice cream. Like Lama Zopa Rinpoche says, bodhisattvas enjoy problems the way we enjoy ice cream. And so staying in samsara, even for many, many lives, is not a problem for a bodhisattva. They're even joyful about it. And so yeah, this is because of their practice, giving up negative actions, and also their love and compassion for others, reducing their self-centeredness and their afflictions, but also their realization of emptiness. So that's also an important factor here, overcoming ignorance, grasping at inherent existence, and having this wisdom of emptiness, seeing everything like an illusion, like a dream. So then, yeah, like it says here, they thrive with physical and mental bliss, even while remaining in cyclic existence. So we shouldn't worry about that. I mean, right now, yes, being in samsara is painful. But the more we progress on the bodhisattva path, the less suffering we have, even while we are in samsara. So this, I think, should be helpful. So anytime we find ourselves feeling discouraged or overwhelmed by the bodhisattva path, then it's good to look carefully at what that feeling is all about. What are we discouraged about? Why are we discouraged? And if it's any of these reasons, then we have antidotes to these. Anyone think of any other form of discouragement that can arise about the path, the Bodhisattva's path, that Venerable Jigme?
I think early on, if one starts comparing their practice to others, that brings great discouragement. So that habit of doing that is really discouraging and not beneficial at all.
Yeah. I think Venerable Children talks about that, right? And advises people not to do that. But yeah, if you don't hear someone explaining that and pointing that out, then it's something, I think it's just a natural aspect of our mind. We compare ourselves with others, we're always looking at other people, and then our mind making these comparisons, and yeah, so then you can easily get into that that trap of thinking others are better than me, others are doing better than me, I can't do as well as them, and so on. And it can also lead to jealousy, also pride, when you think you're doing better than somebody else. So all kinds of delusions or afflictions can come up because of that.
I think having unrealistic expectations of how quickly we can progress along the path. And a second one is maybe having some small taste of what Dharma can bring into your life and then thinking it's going to last, and it doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah. So our teachers are usually good at pointing out these pitfalls that we can fall into. So that's really helpful.
The first one presupposes a belief and even an understanding of Buddha nature, because it says like me. But what if somebody does not believe in I have no Buddha nature? Then the antidote might not be as effective.
Yeah. So if you don't even believe in Buddha nature.
Yeah, like if I'm not brought up in a Christian environment, I only learned about it in school because I was in a mission school. But it's just that what I'm hearing, that people who are brought up in that kind of that original sin is how do you bridge that for to help kind of like how do you debate and say that there is no such thing as original sin?
So if someone believes in original sin, you were brought up that way, and you
If you are
believe
brought
in
up Christian and if you're told that you are a sinner,
Yeah.
Even Pope Francis says that, I am a sinner.
Yeah.
So like, how do you get that out of your system?
Yeah. Well, I think impermanence is helpful, to contemplate impermanence and how, all conditioned things are impermanent. They're changing all the time. They depend on causes and conditions, and then causes and conditions are changing all the time, and therefore results are changing all the time. And so, yes, of course, we do have to acknowledge that we have afflictions in our mind. We have ignorance and all the other afflictions. We also have negative karma that we've created. So we do have to recognize the negative aspects of our mind, negative things within our mind. But then the whole idea of impermanence, that these things are not permanent, right? No part of us, of our body and mind, none of this is permanent, changes all the time, and that can be overcome. So that may not be so easy to understand, but I'm trying to remember, there are some remedies to that. Like the root of all of our afflictions that keep us in a state of suffering and not enlightened, not liberated, and so on. The root is ignorance about the true nature of things, not seeing the true nature of ourself and others, and so on. So learning more about ignorance, what ignorance is. That's a bit like original sin in a way. We are born, right from the beginning of our existence, our conception, we're not pure. We are born with, I don't like the word sin, but we are born with ignorance and afflictions and bad karma. But they're not permanent. They're not like things that will last forever. They can be purified, like we can look at the stories of the Buddhas who've been able to do that, and others who've attained nirvana. And also ignorance means not seeing things as they are, not seeing things correctly as they are. And there's an antidote to that, which is to develop wisdom, seeing things as they are. And so it is possible for us to work on our mind and come to see things in a correct way as they really are, and have that wisdom. And once we have that wisdom, then we no longer have that ignorance. It just eliminates that ignorance. And once we've been able to eliminate ignorance, then the other afflictions have nothing to stand on. It's like we pull the rug out from under all the other afflictions. They are all based on ignorance. This takes time, of course, to study and also meditate and contemplate these ideas. But the more we do, the more you do that, the more you become convinced that it is possible to eliminate ignorance and transform your mind completely so that you become enlightened. I think, up until the time you have some insight, it doesn't have to be the direct realization of emptiness, but some insight into emptiness, the true nature of things. Up until that time, there can still be some doubt, right? There's still doubt. Is that really possible? But once there's insight, you get some glimpse of emptiness, the true nature of things, then you realize, oh, it is possible. It is possible. And in fact, I remember our teacher, when I was doing the master's program, he said, there's some practitioners who don't even take refuge until after they have had not a direct realization, but the initial realization, the inferential realization of emptiness. They don't even take refuge. Because it's only when you get that realization, then you realize, oh, there is such a thing as enlightenment, and I can do it. So then you have refuge in the Buddha and the Dharma and the Sangha. It really is possible. So up until that time, you might still have to. So don't feel don't feel bad if you still have doubt about that. But yeah, I mean, I think that was the case. Like when the Buddha first started teaching, it may have been his first disciples or some of his first disciples. When they met the Buddha and he gave them some teaching, they had some, because of their vast merit they had created before, they quickly gained a realization of emptiness. And that led them to take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha and join the Sangha. They became like Arya Sangha right then and there. Well, yeah, maybe, I think some of them did. They had a direct realization, yeah. Or even the first disciples, even those, among those first 5, yeah. So then it's like they were taking refuge with real conviction. Not just because, oh yeah, Buddha, he's a really good person, but wow, what he's talking about really is true. And so they became his followers. So yeah, it's understandable to have doubt about that, what you're saying, until we have some real first-hand experience ourselves of the possibility of transforming our mind and getting rid of all the sins, all the afflictions, all the negativities. Somebody else had a, yeah.
I was just thinking too, to Venerable Pema's point, this kind of the discouragement is so close to just downright wrong view. I was thinking of, I mean, this is all mixed up, but I had my ex-boyfriend was a Theravada practitioner, and when I decided to pursue ordination, suddenly he became very hardline and told me things like, it's not possible to become a Buddha. You can only become an arhat, and you're following the wrong tradition. And I was like, well, I mean, he was mad, obviously, but suddenly it was like, where did this come from, right? Like the concern was that I was following the wrong tradition and teacher and pursuing a completely unrealistic goal. So I just did not engage in that debate.
Yes.
I was just shocked by the certitude he had that you could only become an arhat based on the teachings he had received.
Yeah, so it's only certain people who can become Buddhas. Because, I mean, there is the Bodhisattva path. The Buddha did it, and others do it as well. So what's the difference between those who can and those who can't?
I don't know. What I heard the argument he put forward was that, based on the current historical Buddha and all his disciples only attain arhatship. So that based on the current Buddha's dispensation, that's the only goal we can attain. And then who wrote the Mahayana Sutras? They are apocryphal and so forth. I'm like, okay.
Wow, interesting. That obviously didn't cause you to be discouraged.
I think for me, the conviction really has grown over the years because of all of the excellent teachers that have been around, and it's very clear to see they are so far advanced, and if this path didn't work, they would be more like all of us, and they're not. They're extraordinary. And so that's kind of what gives me such conviction. Extraordinary beings living on this earth now.
Yeah, and I feel incredibly fortunate that I was able to meet beings like that right from the beginning, and meet a lot of them before they passed away. So, yeah, that's probably where my conviction came from. It's certainly not from my experience. So anyway, the point is, recognize discouragement, which, could also take the form of what we call depression, depression, feelings of depression. That's maybe also includes discouragement. And don't let yourself get sucked into those states of mind. use antidotes. If you have trouble doing it on your own, then seek help from teachers or fellow practitioners who are more experienced, Dharma friends and so on. So really try to avoid that one because it's a kind of laziness. It's interesting, it's called laziness, but yeah, laziness because we can get kind of immobilized, paralyzed in our practice, like we just can't go forward because we don't have the conviction that it's possible, that we can do it, or that this path really works, and so on. So this is really important to be aware of and avoid. So after the last class, I was thinking about, based on my own experience, situations where we're actually doing Dharma practice, like doing my daily commitments or doing, like here in the Abbey, following the schedule, offering the service and so forth, attending the morning and evening practices. So we're doing these things, but maybe without joyous effort, not really joyfully, but more out of a sense of obligation. Yeah. Anyone ever experienced that? A lot of effort and no joy. Yeah. joyless effort. So I was wondering, is that one of these three types of laziness or something else? I haven't really spent a lot of time contemplating this. But one thing I did notice in myself, that part of that is involved with the second kind of laziness, attachment to bad activities, like having more enthusiasm for non-Dharma things and less enthusiasm for, like, internet and looking at the news and so on. So a lot of enjoyment with that, but less enjoyment when it comes to doing my practices. So sometimes it's kind of related to the second kind of laziness. But anyway, I just thought that's something to look at. And I really feel I want to work on that. I don't want to continue. I've gotten into some very bad habits. Partly my excuse is because I've been busy, I've been in places where I had to teach a lot and I had to prepare a lot and meet people, and I was really, really busy. So when it came to my daily commitments, I would just do them as quickly as I could and get them over with. So I got into that bad habit. And now even when I have more time and I could do them better, it's hard to change that old habit. So I really feel right now that, yeah, I don't want to continue like that. That's not good preparation for death. And so, yeah, I'm making that determination to, do my practices more mindfully and bring joyous effort into it. But it takes some effort.
I think for me lately, because I've been working on this too, and one of the things that I've tried to bring into my practice is really attending to the virtuous actions that I have done, even if they're kind of mixed or whatever, but I'm trying. And then to rejoice in the merit of that and understand that this is as powerful or more powerful actually than any of the negativities that I am doing. And I think it's hard to think about that. I can give you a list of all the things I do wrong every minute, but to come up with a list of the things that have virtue and create merit, that is harder, and that's just because of how I've been conditioned. So I have to turn that. And then since I've been doing that a little bit, even though it's hard, there is more joy and more energy, I would say.
Yeah, so instead of putting oneself down because I didn't do this very well, but just think, well, I did it and it was good, it was virtuous. Yeah. When I read the book Buddha's Brain, I think it's Buddha's Brain, and he talked about, they call it the negative bias of the brain. That was just like a light bulb going off. They say that just the way that our brains work, the human brain, it focuses more, it pays more attention to negative things than to positive things. Yeah, so there could be, 100 positive things and one negative thing, but you focus on that one negative thing and get really hung up on that. So I found that really, really helpful, just to notice that, oh yeah, and apparently it's universal. When I talk about it in groups, people, oh yeah. And then working, changing that. So focusing on the good things. I don't do enough of that, but making the effort to appreciate the good things you're doing, rejoice in the good things you're doing, rejoice in the good things around you, rejoice, more rejoicing, as an antidote to that. And then with the negative things, well, okay, that's understandable. We're still in samsara. If it was a negative action, purify it. If it was an affliction, work on applying antidotes. There's always antidotes to the negative things. So yeah, working against that way that our brain works, and really helpful. Okay, there's a few questions over here. I saw.
Venerable, what you were just talking about with that negative bias is something that I've really been feeling lately, and it just recently struck me how much of my precious human life I've been wasting by trying to figure out what's wrong with it. And even when there isn't something specific and negative to like problem solve or antidote, I still find myself looking for what's wrong. What's wrong? What can I fix? And then that completely just, squashes all of my joyous effort in this search for something that's wrong that I need to fix.
As we're talking about this, I realize that complacency is a big obstacle that leads to joyless effort, I think, in both my offering service time and my time on meditation. So I've gone through cycles with this about having to refresh my practice. It's harder to do with my offering service at the moment. But you've been practicing for a very, very, very long time. Surely. So how do you keep yours fresh for, when you get into those places where you like reinvigorate or, inspire yourself again and again and again to stay on it?
How to keep what fresh?
Your practice in general. Maybe it falls into one of these discouragement places, but it is definitely, I feel it's definitely a kind of laziness too, that getting into complacency, getting into a rhythm and just doing till I start to get bored with what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm. Well, one thing is reconnecting with teachers, going to teachings. I just went to some teachings. That's really helpful, or watching online. Like when Holiness teaches, or you can look at old teachings that are online. That's really wonderful now. There's so many things to watch online. So connecting with teachers and their energy, and just getting re-inspired by that. So that's one thing that comes to mind. And for me, teaching is really, I feel really fortunate that I have the opportunity to teach, because that really invigorates me in my practice and my study. When I'm just sitting by myself in my room, it's a little harder, but when I'm teaching, it's like I get yeah, a new kind of energy. So that's really helpful. Those are the only things I can think of right now. But I have to do more of this consistently. Yeah, so this topic, joyous effort, is a big one. Yeah, so if we notice not having, a lack of joyous effort in our practice or other things we're doing, like offering service and so on and so forth, it is important to notice that and then look for what's going on there, what are the causes of that, and find antidotes, appropriate antidotes to change that mindset so that we do have joyous effort. But yeah, just realizing that there's so many, and I think here in the Abbey, I think having those little motivation, like the cards you read for offering service or the one in the kitchen for cooking, So having these reminders throughout the day about what we're doing, why we're doing, and so on and so forth, that's really helpful as well. And if it's not always done in a formal way, you could always do it on your own, just to reinvigorate your energy. Thank you.
I also to know that I get into the joyless effort when it's all about what I have to do and what my tasks are, what my project is, and what my responsibilities. When I get the mind that's about collaboration, that all of us are generating merit, all of us are trying to cultivate bodhicitta, then you become part of a bigger energy field rather than this little to-do list that you have that seems to never get, done. So the self-centeredness can also bring the joylessness into it because it becomes self-concerned about achievements and finishing things and leaves out all of the beautiful energy and virtue that's just surrounding us all the time by the people who live here, come here, and our teachers. And so when I open up my view, things brighten for me.
Yeah, just remembering the good fortune that we have, especially, compared to things going on in the world, things going on with other people on this planet and in samsara and other realms. I mean, just wow, it's like amazing the fortune that we have. Yeah, so it's important to try not to get complacent about that and keep reminding ourselves, yeah, we really are fortunate, and let's do as much as we can to make good use, wise use of this situation. So we don't know how long it's going to last. Okay, then there's just a little bit left. Well, there's a little bit in terms of words, but more in terms of explanation. So then the last paragraph, 264, says, relying on favorable conditions for joyous effort has 4 types. These are the 4 powers. You may remember from Shantideva's text. So the power of aspiration is to meditate on causes and effects so as to generate the aspiration to discard and adopt. So the first of the 4 powers is the power of aspiration. And so this involves taking strong interest in creating virtue and avoiding non-virtue. And so he says the way to generate that is to meditate on cause and effect, so that we understand, we have a strong conviction that causes lead to effects. Actions we do lead to results that we will experience. And so in a general way, that's about karma. If we create non-virtuous karma, there'll be suffering. If we create virtue, there will be happiness. So just generating strong determination or strong conviction in karma that all the actions that we do are going to bring results, and therefore we are responsible. It's in our hands and not up to anyone else what we will experience in the future. So it's good to think about the future and what do we want? What kind of experiences do we want in the future? So surely we want happiness, good experiences in this life, in our next life, in all our lives, as long as we're still in samsara. And not just to have good conditions, but to be able to, again, meet the Dharma, like we are in this lifetime, meet teachers and have the conditions to practice Dharma and continue following the path. So it really, generates strong aspiration to have those conditions in the future. I realize that they depend on our own efforts, our own actions right now. We are creating the causes for what we'll experience in the future. So that will give us a lot of energy to practice. And then, of course, the higher goals of liberation, enlightenment, and so on. So it's up to us to create the causes of those. And and Geshe Zopa had some really nice comments about this. One thing he said, he was using the word desire, because they actually do use that word. Desire is sometimes a negative thing, like, sense desire, attachment, but it's also used in a positive way, like the desire for nirvana, the desire for enlightenment. And so Geshe Zopa says, the intensity of our desire, meaning positive desire, determines how much we will practice. So if our desire or aspiration is weak, our practice will be weak. If it's strong, then our practice will be strong. He said, in this sense, desire is the root of all virtues. Every positive result, from good rebirths to enlightenment, is dependent on this desire to practice the Dharma. So he said, aspiration or desire is like a pillar holding up our joyous effort in virtuous activity. So I thought that was interesting, that we have to have a strong, very strong desire or aspiration to achieve certain goals in the future. Good conditions, liberation, enlightenment, following the Bodhisattva's path. And so we need to cultivate such desire. We need to study the scriptures and meditate on it again and again to develop this conviction and cause and effect that it's up to us, it's up to our actions, our activities, what we will experience in the future. And if we want those good results, we have to create the causes for them. And also, in the Lamrim Chenmo, Lama Tsongkhapa says that here cause and effect isn't just like karma in general, like with regard to virtuous karma, non-virtuous karma, but also the causes to make progress on the Bodhisattva path. So that's our wish, our aspiration is to follow the Bodhisattva path and reach enlightenment. And the Bodhisattva path involves a lot of things, like developing certain qualities and overcoming certain obstacles and so on and so forth. And so learning about all of those and what it is we need to do, what do we have to do to actually achieve those good qualities, achieve those realizations, to make progress on the Bodhisattva path. What is it? What is required? What do we have to do? And then make sure that we put our energy into creating those causes. So, yeah, there's a lot of work to do, a lot of things we have to do. And he said that a person who's taken the Bodhisattva vow is like an ambassador that represents an important country, like the United States. And whatever an ambassador says or does, whether good or bad, has big repercussions. So if you're an ambassador, you have to be really careful about what you do, because you're representing this big country. And if you make a mistake, if you slip up, it's gonna, big blowout, big problem. And he said it's similar with someone who has taken the bodhisattva vow. Like us, whatever we do is on behalf of all sentient beings. We are representing the whole mass, the whole universe of sentient beings. And so, in that sense, there's great benefit if we do good, if we engage in the bodhisattva deeds as we promised to do, but enormous disadvantages if we don't do what we promised to do. So I thought that was an interesting analogy. We're not just acting on our own for ourselves, but we are acting on behalf of all sentient beings. And so all the things we do are really significant, really important. Great benefit if we do the right thing, big problems if we don't. So, yeah. So cause and effect, making sure that we create virtue and avoid non-virtue. The second power is the power of fortitude. Now here, fortitude isn't like Venerable uses that word for patience, but it's also known as steadfastness or self-confidence, meaning you don't give up what you started. So he says the power of fortitude is to not pursue anything impulsively without first investigating it, but having investigated it, to engage in it until you complete it. So it's following through on what you start. So you may remember that from Shantideva. He says, before beginning some project, activity, or action for the benefit of sentient beings, we should check whether or not we can actually do it and complete it, bring it to completion. And if not, it's better not to begin, right? So if you don't have the confidence, the certainty that you will actually be able to continue doing this action until you've finished it, then it's better not to begin. Because he says, otherwise, if we start things and then give up before we finish them, then there are adverse consequences, like developing a bad habit. That becomes a habit. You keep doing that again and again, starting and stopping, not finishing, not completing things. And that habit can continue also in future lives as well as this one. And it can extend to other activities. Okay, so if you start one thing and you don't finish it, then other things, other positive actions you do, you might follow suit. You might also give them up without finishing them. And it can also weaken the stability of our vows and precepts. So we become someone who's kind of not very steady in terms of keeping our precepts, keeping our vows. And also people will probably lose trust and confidence in us. They see us as someone who's, doesn't follow through, doesn't fulfill promises, not reliable, right? So those are some of the adverse consequences of not finishing what we start. So he says it's better to think carefully about what we're going to do and have the determination that we will continue until we have finished it and not give up. So that's the meaning of this power of fortitude or steadfastness. Then, third power is the power of joy. being joyful about creating virtue, about benefiting sentient beings and so on. And it's, Shanideva says, it's the same kind of joy that children have when it comes to play, right? Kids love to play, and they could play for hours and hours, and they don't even want to go to bed. They just want to keep playing. So that kind of joy in play that children have, bringing that same kind of joy to our Dharma practice. And so it says, the power of joy makes your undertaking of joyous effort uninterrupted and insatiable, like a child engaged in a game. So, yeah, this is the ideal. Joyful effort. Well, we've probably all had it at some times, and so it can be helpful to remember. Yeah, oh yeah, I felt that way when I was doing such and such and such. I can do it again. Try to regenerate that sense of joy, and make it part of our practice, part of our daily life. Then the fourth power he calls power of suspension. It's also called relinquishment or rest, power of rest. That's the one that makes most sense. And that means, here it says, to rest when your body and your mind are worn out due to your owing to your joyous effort. As soon as you have recovered, you start again. So, we are ordinary beings with limited energy, and so, there are times when we feel tired, physically tired, mentally tired, or both. And so we need to recognize that and not keep pushing ourselves to keep going when we're exhausted. So bodhisattvas need to take a break, take a rest when it's necessary, but then not rest too long, not slip into laziness. So when you've recovered your energy, then resume your efforts, your activities. So it said these are 4 powers bodhisattva needs. These are favorable conditions for joyous effort. So it's just a little bit. Let's see if I can finish this last bit. So in this way, in reliance upon stopping adverse conditions, those 3 kinds of laziness, and then relying on favorable conditions, 4 powers, undertake joyous effort until your body and your mind become light, like a piece of cotton carried by the wind. Yeah, that they use that same analogy with calm abiding, serenity, shamatha. They say that when you achieve shamatha, you have that feeling like your body just feels really light, as if it was like a piece of cotton. Very easy to engage in virtuous actions and not feeling tired and heavy and exhausted and so on. But yeah, so if we can put our joyous effort into our practice of meditation, especially concentration, then we will get to that point. Finally, it says, when you train in joyous effort, do so in such a way that possesses the 6 perfections, meaning bring all the other perfections into your practice of joyous effort. He gives one example. The generosity of joyous effort is to abide in joyous effort yourself and to establish others in it. So you are generous with your joyous effort in that you want others to generate joyous effort. So you do what you can, not pushing them, but inspiring others to also have joyous effort. So how teach them how to overcome laziness and have more joyous effort in their Dharma practice. Encourage them if they become discouraged. If someone's falling into discouragement, give them encouragement. So that's how we practice the generosity of joyous effort. And then for the rest, these are explained in another book, The Path to Enlightenment in Tibetan Buddhism by Geshe Loden. So the ethics of joyous effort, practicing ethics with joyous effort, is while practicing joyous effort, be mindful of precepts that you have taken, be careful not to transgress them. So when you are doing something related to joyous effort, just be careful about your ethical conduct. Don't go overboard with your enthusiasm and break your precepts or do something unethical. And then patience with joyous effort. Avoid getting angry at sentient beings that present challenges. Be patient with obstacles encountered. So while engaging in joyous effort, you might encounter obstacles, difficulties, so that gives you a chance to employ patience or fortitude to overcome those. And then joyous effort with joyous effort is allowing the tendencies you develop through practicing joyous effort to help you practice continuously in the future until enlightenment. So have the aspiration to continue having joyous effort, going forward in this life and all future lives, all the way up to enlightenment. So establishing firm tendencies, habituation to joyous effort. And then concentration with joyous effort, stay focused on what you're doing, and look out for obstacles like restlessness, distraction, dullness, and so on, and apply antidotes to them. And then wisdom, bringing wisdom into joyous effort. So we're going to get to wisdom soon, but there's conventional wisdom as well as ultimate wisdom. So conventional wisdom can include using skillful means while practicing joyous effort. So determine if you're working with different people, what would be the most skillful way of working with different people, depending on their dispositions, their strong points, weak points, and so on. So don't treat everyone the same. And then with ultimate wisdom, the understanding of emptiness, ideally, when practicing joyous effort, we do so with the understanding that the I who is practicing doesn't exist inherently, is empty of inherent existence. And then whatever activity we're doing is also empty of inherent existence. And then whatever objects we are relating to, other beings, material things, and so on. So those are also empty of inherent existence. So the three spheres involved in any activity or action: the subject, the agent who's doing the action itself, the object of the action, all of these are empty of existing inherently. They're merely labeled, merely designated dependent arisings. So whatever understanding we have of that, bringing that in, keeping that alive, as ideally that's what bodhisattvas do. So that's how we practice all the 6 perfections within the perfection of joyous effort. Okay, any last questions, Andrea?
I was wondering for the power of fortitude, not giving up what you started. It made me think about the importance of going really step by step in terms of our capacity, because if we just jump into the deep end and start something that's way over our head, that of course is going to be difficult to sustain. And I wonder if you have any advice on, when we're trying sort of these stretch goals.
The
not
what?
When we're setting goals or like thinking about what next to start, that balance between wanting to kind of stay within one's comfort zone, but also wanting to stretch so that we continue that growth. I wonder how you've struck that balance in your practice.
I don't think I've done that very well. I was very young and impulsive and idealistic when I started, so I jumped into things really fast, way over my head. It is hard, I think, to know. Yeah, he talks about, it makes it sound like you know what you're capable of, and you're able to do this and finish it. But yeah, how do you know? So I think that can be difficult unless you're already, kind of mature. You've had a lot of experiences in life, and you kind of know what your capabilities are. Otherwise, that's another reason why it's helpful to have teachers. Checking with your teacher. So you might have some idea about doing something, jumping into a Geshe studies program, in Sera Monastery. So if you have a teacher you can check with, and that helps, because if the teacher says, no, maybe you're not ready for that, or yes, go for it, then at least you've got more than just your own ideas to go on. And having received such advice from a teacher can give you the energy to keep going. If your teacher says, yeah, that's a wonderful thing to do, I rejoice in you doing it. And that can help you keep going even if it's hard. Although, yeah, people do sometimes drop out after trying something like that for a while. So it can be hard to know. Even if the activity itself is fantastic and virtuous and beneficial for you and everybody else, but hard to know if that really is something you are capable of doing. So I remember when I first heard about this teaching, I was, yeah, like don't even start something unless you're sure you can finish it? That seems, huh? Yeah, but maybe, yeah, if you start with smaller things, more reasonable things, even like doing 100,000 prostrations, for some people that can seem like, oh no, how could I possibly do that? But if you do little by little, yeah, that was how I did it, 100 or 200 a day, and eventually I finished. I'm not sure if I could have just gone all day long doing prostrations until I finished. That would have been hard, but doing a little bit every day. Yeah, and in fact, I've heard it said that one teacher said that's why there are these numbers like 100,000 of this and that and so on, because the path to enlightenment is really long. Attaining enlightenment is a really high goal, and so you feel like you keep practicing and you feel like you're not getting anywhere. But if you have a goal of 100,000 and this or that itself can seem pretty daunting. But if you do it, you finish it, then you feel, I can do it. It gives you confidence that you are capable of achieving something. And if you do a number of those again and again and again, it just builds up your confidence, your ability. So if you have small goals, relatively small goals, and you do those and accomplish those, that gives you the confidence to take on yet other and maybe bigger goals. So I don't know if that's answering your question or not, but that's what I can think of now. So we better stop here. So let's dedicate the merit, the positive energy we've created, and share it with all sentient beings.
May the spiritual teachers who lead me on the sacred path and all spiritual friends who practice it have long life. May I pacify completely all outer and inner hindrances. Grant such inspiration, I pray. May the lives of the venerable spiritual mentors be stable, and their virtuous actions spread in the 10 directions. May the light of Losang's teachings dispelling the darkness of the beings in the 3 worlds always increase. Idam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Niryatayami. Due to this merit, may we soon attain the awakened state of Guru Buddha, that we may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their sufferings. May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore.